shattered vows, burning hearts. A tale of love, betrayal, and redemption. The perfect illusion. The dream life. Serena Matthews stood on the balcony of the Grand Seaside Hotel, watching the sunset paint the California sky in shades of gold and crimson. Below her, a wedding reception was in full swing. The bride and groom danced under strings of fairy lights, surrounded by friends and family who celebrated their love. Serena smiled, feeling the familiar warmth of satisfaction. This was her creation. Every detail, from the white rose centerpieces to the champagne tower, had been carefully planned by her hands. At 32 years old, Serena had built Eternal Moments, one of the most sought-after wedding planning companies on the West Coast. She had turned her passion for creating perfect celebrations into a thriving business. Magazine features, celebrity clients, and a waiting list that stretched for months, she had achieved everything she once dreamed of in her small-town childhood. But the crown jewel of her life wasn't her business success. It was Marcus. Marcus Wellington had walked into her life 3 years ago at a charity gala. Tall, handsome, with dark hair and eyes that sparkled with intelligence and charm, he had approached her with a confidence that should have felt arrogant but somehow felt magnetic instead. He was a tech entrepreneur, the founder of Wellington Innovations, a software company that had exploded in value over the past 5 years. "You're Serena Matthews," he had said that first night, extending his hand. "I've heard you're the woman who makes dreams come true." "Only wedding dreams," she had replied with a laugh. "Maybe you could expand your services," he had said, his smile widening. "Because I'm looking at a dream right now." It was a cheesy line, the kind that should have made her roll her eyes. But something about the way he said it, the genuine warmth in his voice, had made her heart skip. They talked all evening. He made her laugh, asked thoughtful questions about her business, and seemed genuinely interested in everything she said. By the end of the night, she had given him her number. 6 months later, he proposed on a beach in Malibu, with a sunset as beautiful as this one. The ring was stunning, a platinum band with a perfect diamond that caught the light like captured starlight. She had cried tears of joy and said yes without hesitation. Their wedding, 1 year ago, had been the event of the season. Serena had planned every detail herself, pouring her heart into creating the perfect day. And it had been perfect. Marcus had looked at her with such love as she walked down the aisle. His vows had been beautiful, promising her a lifetime of partnership, respect, and endless love. Now, standing on this balcony watching another couple celebrate their beginning, Serena felt grateful for the life she had built. She pulled out her phone to check the time and saw a message from Claire, her business partner and best friend. "Emergency with the Johnson wedding venue. Need you at the office ASAP." Serena's smile faded. The Johnson wedding was 3 weeks away, a high-profile event that could bring in significant publicity. She quickly texted back that she was on her way and hurried downstairs to wrap up with the hotel staff. The crack in the foundation. The drive to her office normally took 25 minutes, but Serena made it in 18, her mind racing through possible problems. Venue issues were always stressful, but they usually had solutions. She and Claire had handled worse. Claire Davidson had been her closest friend since college. They had met in a business class and discovered they shared the same dreams of entrepreneurship. When Serena decided to start her wedding planning company, Claire had been the first person she called. Claire brought financial expertise and organizational skills that perfectly complemented Serena's creative vision. Together, they had built Eternal Moments from a dream into reality. Serena pulled into the parking lot of their office building, a charming converted Victorian house painted soft blue with white trim. Their business had grown so much they now occupied the entire first floor. She grabbed her bag and hurried inside, expecting to find Claire frantically making phone calls. The reception area was empty. The lights were dim, just the security lighting they left on after hours. Serena frowned, checking her watch. It was only 8:30. Claire should be here. "Claire," she called out, moving toward their main office. "Where are you?" No answer. Serena felt a flutter of unease. She pulled out her phone to call Claire when she heard something. A sound coming from the conference room at the end of the hall. Laughter. Low and intimate. Her footsteps slowed. Something felt wrong. The conference room door was slightly ajar, warm light spilling out into the darkened hallway. As she got closer, she heard voices. Two voices she knew better than almost any others in the world. "We have to be more careful," Claire was saying, her voice breathy and light. "Serena almost caught us last week when she came home early." Serena's heart stopped. Her hand froze on the door frame. "She won't catch us," Marcus replied, his voice thick with satisfaction. "She's too busy making everyone else's dreams come true to notice what's happening in her own life." "That's cruel," Claire said, but she was laughing. "It's true. My wife is so focused on perfection, she can't see what's right in front of her. She actually believes we have the perfect marriage." Serena's hand moved of its own accord, pushing the door open wider. The scene before her would be burned into her memory forever. Claire was sitting on the conference table, her dress hiked up, her lipstick smudged. Marcus stood between her legs, his hands on her waist, his shirt unbuttoned. They both froze when they saw her. For a moment, nobody moved. The world seemed to stop spinning. Serena's brain couldn't process what her eyes were seeing. This had to be a nightmare. This couldn't be real. "Serena," Marcus said, his voice tight. He stepped back from Claire, but his hands moved slowly, as if he didn't want to startle a wild animal. "How long?" Serena heard herself ask. Her voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. Claire slid off the table, smoothing down her dress. Her face was flushed, but Serena couldn't tell if it was from embarrassment or something else. "Serena, we need to talk." "How long?" Serena repeated, louder this time. Her hands were shaking. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she had always found endearing. Now it made her stomach turn. "Does it matter? Does it matter?" The words came out as a whisper. "You're my husband. She's my best friend. You're asking me if it matters?" 2 years, Claire said quietly. "It's been 2 years." The floor seemed to tilt beneath Serena's feet. 2 years. That meant it had started before the wedding. It meant Marcus had looked into her eyes and promised to love her while already betraying her with her closest friend. It meant every moment of the past 2 years had been a lie. "You stood next to me at my wedding," Serena said to Claire, her voice breaking. "You were my maid of honor. You helped me get ready. You held my bouquet. And all that time." "We didn't mean for it to happen," Claire said, but there was no real apology in her voice. Just awkwardness, like she'd been caught doing something mildly inappropriate rather than destroying her best friend's life. Marcus moved closer to Serena. "Listen, this doesn't have to ruin everything. We can work this out. Be civilized about it." Serena looked at him, really looked at him, and realized she was seeing a stranger. How had she never noticed the coldness in his eyes? The calculation behind his charm? "Work it out," she repeated. "Be civilized? You've been sleeping with my best friend for 2 years, and you want to be civilized?" "Serena, you're making this dramatic," Marcus said, his voice taking on an edge. "People make mistakes. Marriages are complicated." "This isn't a mistake," Serena said, surprised by how steady her voice suddenly sounded. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This is a choice. A choice you made every single day for 2 years." She turned to Claire. "And you? You sat across from me at dinner parties. You helped me plan other people's weddings. You listened to me talk about how happy I was. How lucky I felt. And you said nothing." Claire's expression hardened. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with perfection, Marcus wouldn't have needed someone else. Maybe if you paid attention to your marriage instead of everyone else's, this wouldn't have happened. The words hit like physical blows. Serena felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of them. Get out of my office, Serena said quietly. Technically, it's half mine, Claire said, crossing her arms. I'm a partner, remember? Marcus stepped forward. Serena, let's go home and talk about this properly. I don't have a home anymore, Serena said. Not if you're in it. She turned and walked out before they could say anything else. She made it to her car before the tears came. Great, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. She gripped the steering wheel, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her like a sandcastle hit by a wave. The unraveling. The next few weeks were a blur of pain and humiliation. Serena moved out of the house she shared with Marcus and into a small apartment across town. She stopped answering calls from mutual friends who had heard the news and didn't know whose side to take. She discovered that Marcus had been telling people she was the one who had problems, that she was obsessed with work and had neglected their marriage. The worst part was the business. Claire owned 40% of Eternal Moments. She couldn't be easily removed, and she wasn't planning to leave quietly. Serena showed up to the office to find Claire already there, acting as if nothing had happened. Clients started canceling, uncomfortable with the tension between the two partners. Staff members quit, not wanting to be caught in the middle. Within a month, the business Serena had spent 8 years building was falling apart. Magazine features were cancelled. The waiting list disappeared. Her reputation, once spotless, was now tangled up in gossip and scandal. Serena felt like she was drowning. Every morning, she woke up hoping it had all been a terrible dream. Every morning, reality crashed over her like ice water. She was sitting in a coffee shop on a gray Tuesday morning, staring at her laptop screen without really seeing it, when someone sat down across from her. "You look like you could use a friend," a voice said. Serena looked up to find a man watching her with kind eyes. He was probably in his late 30s, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples and a face that was more interesting than handsome. He wore an expensive suit but had loosened his tie, giving him a casual elegance. "I'm not interested," Serena said tiredly. She'd had enough of charming men to last a lifetime. "Good," the man said with a slight smile. "Because I'm not hitting on you. I'm Adrian Sinclair, and I have a business proposition." Serena frowned. The name was vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. "I'm not in the market for business propositions right now. Even one that involves destroying Marcus Wellington?" Serena's attention snapped into focus. "What did you say?" Adrian leaned back in his chair, his expression neutral. "Your husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, I assume, cost me $20 million and nearly destroyed my company 3 years ago. I've been waiting for the right opportunity to return the favor. And now, thanks to his spectacularly poor judgment, I think I've found it. Why are you telling me this?" "Because you have access to things I don't. Because you know his weaknesses. Because you want justice as much as I want revenge." Adrian pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the table. "Think about it. If you want to make sure Marcus Wellington gets what he deserves, call me." He stood up and walked away, leaving Serena staring at the card in her hand. Adrian Sinclair. CEO, Sinclair Holdings. And suddenly, she remembered where she'd heard the name. 3 years ago, Marcus had told her about a business deal gone wrong, a partnership that fell through. He'd painted himself as the victim, a good man taken advantage of by a ruthless competitor. But what if Marcus had been lying then too? Serena looked out the window at the gray sky, at the people hurrying past with their umbrellas and their problems. She thought about everything she'd lost. Her marriage, her best friend, her business, her reputation. All because she had trusted the wrong people. Maybe it was time to stop being the victim. Maybe it was time to fight back. She picked up her phone and dialed the number on the card. Adrian Sinclair, the voice answered after one ring. "It's Serena Matthews," she said. "I want to hear your proposition." There was a pause, and then she heard the smile in his voice. I was hoping you'd call. Meet me tomorrow at noon. I'll text you the address. And Serena? Come ready to fight. Because this won't be easy, and it won't be clean. But I promise you, it will be worth it. He hung up before she could respond. Serena stared at her phone, her heart pounding. She didn't know Adrian Sinclair. She had no reason to trust him. But she also had nothing left to lose. For the first time in weeks, she felt something other than pain and despair. She felt anger, bright and sharp and clarifying. And underneath that anger, like a coal beginning to glow, she felt something else. Hope. Part 2, Rising from Ashes. The Alliance. The address Adrian texted led Serena to a sleek downtown office building with glass walls that reflected the sky. She stood outside for a moment, second-guessing her decision. Getting involved with a stranger who wanted revenge on her husband seemed reckless at best, dangerous at worst. But then she thought about Marcus's smug face, about Claire's casual cruelty, about the way they had destroyed everything she built and felt no remorse. She squared her shoulders and walked inside. Adrian's office was on the 23rd floor. The receptionist, a professional woman with sharp eyes, seemed to be expecting her. Ms. Matthews, Mr. Sinclair is ready for you. Please follow me. The office was impressive but not ostentatious. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with actual books rather than decorative props. Adrian stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the view. He turned when she entered. Thank you for coming, he said, gesturing to a comfortable seating area with leather chairs and a coffee table. Would you like something to drink? Coffee, tea, water? Just answers, Serena said, sitting down but keeping her posture straight, defensive. Adrian smiled slightly and took the chair across from her. Fair enough. I assume you've done some research on me since yesterday? A little, Serena admitted. She had stayed up late Googling him. Sinclair Holdings was a private equity firm that had invested in numerous successful ventures. Adrian himself was wealthy, educated, and notably private. There were business articles but little about his personal life. Then you probably found mentions of the Wellington deal, Adrian said. Serena nodded. The article said it was a failed partnership. Some kind of software development agreement that fell apart. That's the sanitized version, Adrian said, his voice hardening slightly. The truth is that Marcus and I were developing a security software platform together. I provided the funding, $20 million. He provided the technical expertise and his company's infrastructure. We were 50-50 partners. What happened? 6 months into development, Marcus claimed the project was failing. He showed me falsified reports, manufactured problems, convinced me to dissolve the partnership. I walked away from my investment, thinking we'd both lost. 2 months later, he launched the exact same software under his company's name. He'd stolen my investment, my idea, and made it look like a legitimate failure on my end. Serena felt a chill run through her. Did you sue? I tried. He'd covered his tracks well. Had paperwork showing I'd agreed to the dissolution, signed documents releasing him from obligations. My lawyer said we could fight it, but it would take years and might not succeed. Meanwhile, the software made Wellington Innovations $50 million in its first year. So you've been waiting for payback, Serena said quietly. I've been waiting for an opportunity, Adrian corrected. There's a difference. I'm not interested in petty revenge. I'm interested in justice. In making sure Marcus Wellington can't do to anyone else what he did to me. Or to you. Serena studied him carefully. Why do you care about what he did to me? Because it reveals something important, Adrian said, leaning forward. Marcus is careless now. He thinks he's untouchable. He's making mistakes. And when powerful men make mistakes, that's when you can finally bring them down. What exactly are you proposing? Adrian pulled out a folder and opened it on the coffee table. Inside were documents, financial records, communications. I've spent 3 years investigating Marcus's business practices. He's been cutting corners, bribing officials, falsifying reports. Nothing I can prove in court, yet. But if someone close to him, someone with legal access to his records, could help me gather evidence. You want me to spy on my husband, Serena said flatly. I want you to expose a criminal, Adrian countered. Everything I'm suggesting is legal. You're still married, which gives you certain rights to access shared accounts, shared property. You're also still a partner in a business that has financial dealings with Wellington Innovations. There are legitimate reasons for you to have access to information. Serena felt her pulse quicken. And if I help you gather this evidence, what happens? We go to the authorities. We expose everything. Marcus doesn't just lose his reputation, he loses his company, his freedom. We make sure he can never hurt anyone again. It was tempting. God, it was tempting. But Serena hesitated. What do you get out of this? Justice, Adrian said simply. And yes, satisfaction. I won't pretend I'm a saint. I want to see Marcus Wellington pay for what he did. But I'm offering you a chance to be part of that. To take back some control over your life. Serena looked at the documents spread on the table. Numbers, names, dates, evidence of a man she thought she knew being someone completely different. I need time to think, she said finally. Of course, Adrian said, standing. Take all the time you need. But Serena? He met her eyes. Don't take too long. Marcus is already moving assets, protecting himself. The divorce proceedings will give him legal cover to hide things. We have a window, but it won't stay open forever. Serena nodded and stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. Why me? You could have approached me 3 years ago, when Marcus first stole from you. Adrian's expression softened slightly. 3 years ago, you were in love with him. You wouldn't have believed me. Sometimes, people need to learn the truth themselves before they're ready to act on it. You're ready now. Rediscovering strength. Serena didn't make her decision immediately. She spent 3 days thinking, weighing the risks and benefits. She talked to her lawyer, who warned her to be careful but confirmed that accessing shared marital assets was legal. She talked to her therapist, who asked her what she really wanted from this. I want him to pay, Serena had said. I want Marcus to face consequences for once in his life. I want Claire to understand that betraying people has a cost. I want everyone who believed Marcus's lies about me to know the truth. And then what? The therapist asked gently. After you get your revenge, what do you want? Serena had been surprised by the question. She realized she'd been so focused on what she'd lost that she hadn't thought about what she wanted to build next. That night, sitting in her small apartment, Serena made a list. Not of revenge plans, but of dreams. Things she'd wanted to do but had put aside while building her business, while being the perfect wife, while trying to make everyone else happy. She wanted to travel. She'd spent her entire adult life in California and had always dreamed of seeing Paris, Tokyo, New Zealand. She wanted to write. She'd kept journals since childhood, filled with stories and observations, but had never shared them with anyone. She wanted to be brave. To take risks. To trust herself again. Looking at that list, Serena realized something important. Working with Adrian wasn't just about bringing Marcus down. It was about proving to herself that she was strong enough to fight back. That she wasn't a victim. The next morning, she called Adrian. I'm in, she said. Tell me what you need me to do. The investigation. Working with Adrian was different from anything Serena had expected. He was methodical, patient, and surprisingly respectful. He never pushed her to do anything that made her uncomfortable. Instead, they worked together, planning each step carefully. The first task was accessing Marcus's home office. Serena still had a key to the house, their divorce wasn't finalized yet, and technically, it was still her property too. She chose a Tuesday afternoon when she knew Marcus would be at work. Her hands shook as she unlocked the door. The house felt strange now, like a museum of a life that had never really existed. Everything was exactly as she'd left it, the throw pillows she'd chosen, the artwork they'd bought together, the photos on the mantel showing a smiling couple who were strangers to her now. She forced herself to focus. Marcus's office was on the second floor, a room he'd always kept locked. She'd respected his privacy then, believing he needed space for important business work. Now she understood it had been a hiding place. Using a copy of the key she'd found in a kitchen drawer, she unlocked the door. The office was neat, organized, very much like Marcus himself. Everything had its place. The computer was password protected, but Adrian had given her a thumb drive that would copy files without leaving traces. She plugged it in and waited while it worked. While the computer downloaded, Serena searched the physical files. Most were boring business documents, contracts, reports. But in the bottom drawer of his desk, hidden under a stack of old tax returns, she found something interesting. A second phone. Her heart raced as she turned it on. It wasn't password protected, Marcus clearly never expected anyone to find it. The messages were all there. Conversations with Claire, yes, but also with other women. Marcus hadn't just been unfaithful with Claire. There were at least 3 others that Serena could identify from the texts. She felt sick but forced herself to take photos of everything. This was evidence. This mattered. The computer finished copying. Serena removed the thumb drive, shut everything down, and carefully put everything back exactly as she'd found it. As she was leaving, she heard a sound from downstairs. Her blood ran cold. Someone was in the house. The growing connection. Serena stood frozen at the top of the stairs, listening. Footsteps moved through the first floor. Then a familiar voice called out. "Serena? Are you here?" Claire. Of course. Marcus had probably given her a key. Why not? They'd certainly made themselves comfortable with everything else that belonged to Serena. Serena considered hiding, but something in her rebelled against the idea. This was still her house. She had every right to be here. She walked downstairs, chin up, holding the banister to keep her hands steady. Claire stood in the living room, wearing one of her expensive designer dresses, holding a wine glass from Serena's kitchen. She had the audacity to look surprised. "What are you doing here?" Claire asked. "I live here," Serena said coldly. "Legally, it's still my house." "What are you doing here?" "Marcus asked me to pick up some documents," Claire said, but her eyes were wary. "From upstairs?" Serena asked. "Because I just came from up there." A flicker of something, fear? Guilt, crossed Claire's face. "What were you doing in Marcus's office?" "Collecting my property," Serena lied smoothly. "I'm entitled to half of our marital assets, remember? That includes documents." "You can't just go through his private files," Claire said, her voice rising. "Watch me," Serena said. She moved toward the door, but Claire stepped in front of her. "You need to let this go, Serena," Claire said, her voice hard now. "Marcus is willing to be generous in the divorce. But if you start making trouble, if you try to damage his business, he'll make sure you get nothing. And he can do it. You know he can." Serena looked at the woman who had been her best friend. She saw desperation there, and fear. Claire wasn't as confident as she pretended. She was worried. "Get out of my way, Claire," Serena said quietly. "Serena. Get out of my way." Something in Serena's voice must have convinced Claire not to push further. She stepped aside, and Serena walked past her, out the door, into the sunlight. She made it to her car before she started shaking. She gripped the steering wheel, forcing herself to breathe slowly. She'd done it. She'd gotten the evidence. She'd faced Claire without falling apart. She drove straight to Adrian's office. His receptionist sent her right in. Adrian took one look at her face and poured her a glass of water from the pitcher on his desk. "What happened?" he asked, his voice gentle. Serena told him everything, showing him the thumb drive and the photos from Marcus's phone. As she talked, some of her fear transformed into anger. Then pride. She'd done this. She'd been brave. "You were incredible," Adrian said when she finished. "This is exactly what we needed. The phone records especially, that shows a pattern of deception." "Claire was there," Serena said. "She knows I was in the office. She'll tell Marcus." "Let her," Adrian said. "You had every legal right to be there. And now they're on the defensive. They'll start making more mistakes." He started going through the files on the thumb drive, his expression growing more focused as he read. "This is good. Really good. There are financial irregularities here, payments to shell companies, falsified contracts. This is the evidence we need." Serena watched him work, noticing for the first time how dedicated he was. How thoroughly he'd researched everything. "Why does this matter so much to you?" she asked. "I mean, I understand wanting justice. But this is more than that." Adrian stopped typing and looked at her. "When Marcus stole from me, it almost destroyed my company. I had investors who lost faith, employees I couldn't pay, projects I had to cancel. It took me 2 years to recover. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about trust. He made me doubt my own judgment. Made me feel like a fool for believing in a partnership." "I understand that," Serena said softly. "I know you do," Adrian said. "That's why I wanted to work with you. Because you understand what it feels like to have someone you trusted tear your world apart." They looked at each other for a long moment. Something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. They were both survivors. Both fighters. "Thank you," Serena said. "For giving me a way to fight back." "Thank you for being brave enough to take it," Adrian replied. Over the next few weeks, Serena and Adrian worked closely together. They met regularly to review evidence, plan next steps, and strategize. Slowly, Serena began to notice things about Adrian that had nothing to do with their shared mission. The way he listened, really listened, when she talked. The way he remembered small details, her favorite coffee order, the fact that she was allergic to lilies, the name of her childhood dog. The way he made her laugh, even in the middle of stress and planning. She caught herself looking forward to their meetings. Not just because of the work, but because of him. It scared her. She'd just gotten out of a marriage built on lies. She wasn't ready to trust anyone romantically. She might never be ready again. But Adrian was different from Marcus. He was honest about his intentions. He treated her as an equal partner, not someone to be managed or controlled. He respected her boundaries and never pushed for more than she was willing to give. One evening, after a particularly long session reviewing financial records, Adrian suggested they take a break. "There's a good Italian place around the corner," he said. "My treat. And I promise we won't talk about Marcus for at least an hour." Serena hesitated. It felt too much like a date. But she was exhausted and hungry, and the idea of going back to her empty apartment made her chest tighten. 1 hour, she agreed. "And you're buying." The restaurant was small and cozy, with red checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. They sat in a corner booth, and for the first time in months, Serena felt herself relax. Adrian kept his promise. They didn't talk about Marcus or Claire or revenge. Instead, they talked about movies, books, travel. Adrian had been to Paris 3 times and promised to tell her all the best places to visit when she finally made her dream trip. "When this is over," he said, "you should go. Take a month. Just travel and write and remember who you are outside of all this mess." I wouldn't even know where to start, Serena admitted. Start with what makes you curious, Adrian said. What do you want to see? Learn? Experience? They talked until the restaurant started closing. When they finally left, walking out into the cool night air, Serena realized she was smiling. Actually smiling, for the first time in what felt like forever. Thank you, she said. I needed this. So did I, Adrian said. Then, more quietly, Serena, I want you to know, this isn't just about the case for me anymore. I've enjoyed getting to know you. You're brilliant and strong and kinder than you'd give yourself credit for. Serena's heart beat faster. Adrian. I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I know the timing is terrible. I just wanted you to know that when this is over, if you ever want to have dinner again, as just two people without an agenda. I'd like that. Serena looked at him, at this man who had given her back her strength, who had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. She wasn't ready for romance. She might not be ready for a long time. But maybe, just maybe, when the dust settled and she'd healed, there could be something worth exploring. Ask me again when this is over, she said softly. When we're not working together. When Marcus is in the past where he belongs. Ask me then, and I'll give you an answer. Adrian smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. It's a deal. Setting the trap. The evidence mounted over the following month. Adrian's investigators found more financial irregularities, more proof of Marcus's fraud. The second phone Serena had found revealed even more, conversations about bribing city officials for contracts, discussions of hiding assets offshore, plans to expand his schemes. But they needed one more thing, Marcus's testimony. They needed him to incriminate himself directly, in a way that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Adrian had an idea. We set up a fake investment opportunity, he explained. Make it big enough to be tempting, shady enough to appeal to Marcus's methods. We record him agreeing to illegal terms, and we have everything we need. It was risky. If Marcus suspected anything, he'd disappear behind lawyers and wouldn't come out until the trail went cold. But Serena had learned something about herself over these months. She was braver than she'd thought. Stronger. More capable of fighting for what was right. Let's do it, she said. They created a shell company, supposedly run by foreign investors looking to get into the American tech market. Adrian, using a pseudonym and altered appearance, played the lead investor. He contacted Marcus through intermediaries, expressing interest in a joint venture with Wellington Innovations. Marcus, as they predicted, was interested. The potential profit was massive, and the investors seemed naive about American business practices, exactly the kind of partners Marcus loved to exploit. The meeting was set for a Friday evening at an upscale hotel conference room. Adrian had cameras hidden everywhere, recording devices that captured every word. Serena waited in the surveillance van outside, watching the feeds with Adrian's security team, her stomach twisted in knots. She watched Marcus arrive, confident and smiling. Watched him greet Adrian without recognizing him. The disguise was good, and Marcus had only met Adrian a handful of times years ago. Watched as they talked business, Marcus gradually revealing his usual tactics. And then, as they'd hoped, Marcus made his move. He suggested ways to streamline the regulatory process. Mentioned contacts who could be persuaded to overlook certain requirements. Outlined exactly how they could funnel money through various accounts to avoid taxes. It was all there. Every illegal suggestion, every corrupt practice, all captured in perfect clarity. We've got him, Adrian's security chief said quietly. In the van, Serena felt tears sliding down her face. Not tears of sadness, tears of relief. After everything Marcus had taken from her, she'd finally taken back something that mattered. The truth. The complication. The plan was to take the evidence to the FBI on Monday morning. Over the weekend, Adrian's lawyers would prepare everything, ensure every piece of evidence was properly documented and legally obtained. Serena should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt strangely empty. This was what she'd worked for, what she'd wanted. Marcus would finally face consequences. Claire would be exposed as complicit in his schemes. The evidence showed she'd known about the fraud and helped cover it up. But revenge, Serena was discovering, didn't feel the way she'd expected. She thought it would bring satisfaction, closure, peace. Instead, she just felt tired. Saturday morning, she met Adrian at his office to review the final documents. He looked concerned when he saw her face. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I don't know," Serena admitted. "I thought I'd feel better. Happier. But I just feel empty." Adrian set down the papers he'd been holding. "That's normal. Revenge rarely brings the healing people expect. It brings justice, accountability, consequences. But healing? That has to come from somewhere else." "Where?" Serena asked. "From moving forward. From building something new. From letting yourself be happy again, even after someone tried to take that from you." Serena looked at him, this man who had become so important to her. "Is that what you did? After Marcus stole from you?" "Eventually," Adrian said. "But it took time. And it took accepting that some wounds leave scars. They don't disappear, but they become part of your story. Part of what makes you who you are." Before Serena could respond, Adrian's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed. "It's my investigator. I need to take this." He stepped away, and Serena heard his voice change from calm to urgent. When he came back, his face was grim. "Marcus knows," Adrian said. "I don't know how, but he knows we're coming for him. He's moving assets, preparing to flee. If we don't move now, tonight, we'll lose him." "But the lawyers aren't ready," Serena said. "We were supposed to wait until Monday." "We can't wait. My investigator says Marcus has already transferred $15 million to an offshore account. He's erasing evidence, destroying files. By Monday, there might be nothing left to prove." Serena's mind raced. "What do we do?" "We go to the FBI now. Tonight. The evidence we have is enough to start an investigation, get a warrant, freeze his accounts before he can move everything." "Are you sure?" Adrian met her eyes. "No. But if we wait, I'm sure we'll lose him." "Your call, Serena. This is your choice." Serena thought about Marcus, about Claire, about everything they'd taken from her. Then she thought about all the other people Marcus would hurt if he got away. All the future victims who would trust him, invest in him, love him, only to be betrayed. "Let's do it," she said. "Let's end this tonight." Part 3, Heart's Reckoning. The Counterattack. The FBI field office was stark and intimidating, with fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead and walls painted institutional beige. Serena sat across from Special Agent Rachel Morrison, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who listened without interrupting as Adrian presented their evidence. Agent Morrison reviewed the documents, watched the video recordings, examined the financial records. Her expression remained neutral, but Serena could see her interest growing. "This is substantial," Agent Morrison said finally. "But you understand we'll need to verify everything. Run our own investigation. This won't be quick." "We don't have time for slow," Adrian said. "Marcus Wellington is moving assets as we speak. By Monday, he could be gone, and everything with him." "Then it's a good thing you came to us tonight," Agent Morrison said, allowing herself a small smile. "We can get an emergency warrant, freeze his accounts, and bring him in for questioning by morning." She looked at Serena. "Mrs. Wellington, you understand you'll need to testify. This will be public. Difficult. Your marriage, the affair, all of it will come out in court." Serena's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "I understand. I'm ready." Agent Morrison nodded with something like respect. "Then let's get started." The next few hours were a blur of statements, signatures, and official procedures. By midnight, federal agents were executing search warrants at Marcus's office and home. By 2 in the morning, his accounts were frozen. By dawn, Marcus Wellington was in FBI custody. Serena watched the sunrise from Adrian's office, where they'd returned after leaving the FBI. She felt numb, disconnected from reality. It was over. After months of planning, investigating, and fighting, it was finally over. "How do you feel?" Adrian asked, bringing her a cup of coffee. "Strange," Serena said. "Like I should feel something more. Relief or satisfaction or something. But I just feel hollow." "Give it time," Adrian said gently. "The feelings will come. Right now, you're in shock. That's normal." Serena's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You'll regret this. Marcus has lawyers. He'll bury you. Claire." More texts followed, each more desperate and angry than the last. Threats, accusations, pleas for Serena to drop the charges. "She's scared," Adrian observed, reading over Serena's shoulder. "Good," Serena said, blocking the number. "She should be." But as the sun climbed higher, bringing a new day, Serena realized something. She didn't want to spend her life being angry. She didn't want revenge to define her. Marcus and Claire had already stolen enough of her time, her peace, her joy. She wouldn't give them any more. The revelation. The media coverage exploded within days. Marcus Wellington, golden boy of the tech industry, arrested for fraud, bribery, and money laundering. The evidence was overwhelming. His lawyers tried to spin it, blame others, claim misunderstandings, but the recordings didn't lie. His own words convicted him. Claire was arrested 3 days later as an accomplice. The investigation revealed she'd helped Marcus hide assets, falsify documents, and had received significant payments for her cooperation. Her lawyer tried to negotiate a deal, but the evidence against her was too strong. Serena's name was everywhere. At first, it was sympathetic, the wronged wife who'd helped bring down her corrupt husband. But then Marcus's PR team went into overdrive, painting Serena as a bitter, vengeful woman who'd fabricated evidence out of jealousy. Some media outlets bought the narrative. Social media exploded with opinions, most from people who knew nothing about the truth. It was brutal. Serena stopped reading the comments, stopped watching the news. She focused on healing, on therapy, on the quiet work of rebuilding her life. Adrian was there through all of it. Not as a partner in revenge anymore, but as a friend. He showed up with coffee when she couldn't sleep. He sent funny videos when the news got too heavy. He reminded her, on the darkest days, that she'd done the right thing. One afternoon, 6 weeks after Marcus's arrest, Serena sat in her lawyer's office reviewing the divorce settlement. With Marcus facing decades in prison and his assets seized, there wasn't much to divide. But Serena didn't care about the money anymore. She just wanted it finished. "There's one more thing," her lawyer said, sliding a document across the table. "Claire Davidson has offered to sell you her share of Eternal Moments for $1. Serena looked up, surprised. "Why?" Her lawyer says she wants to make amends. She's facing prison time, and she wants to do at least one thing right before she goes away. Serena stared at the document. Eternal Moments. The business she'd built from nothing, that had been destroyed by betrayal. She could have it back, fully hers, no strings attached. "What do you want to do?" her lawyer asked. Serena thought about it. The business represented her past, all the dreams she'd had before everything fell apart. Did she want to go back to that? Or did she want to build something new? "I'll buy it," she said finally. "But I'm not reopening it as a wedding planning company." Her lawyer looked confused. "What will you do with it?" A smile crossed Serena's face, the first genuine smile in weeks. "Something different. Something mine. New beginning." 3 months after Marcus's arrest, Serena stood in front of her newly renovated office space. The sign above the door read New Chapters, Life Planning and Coaching Services. She'd taken everything she'd learned about creating perfect moments and applied it to helping people redesign their lives. Not just weddings, but careers, relationships, personal goals. She hired therapists, life coaches, financial advisors, and created a holistic service that helped people navigate major life transitions. Her first clients were mostly people going through divorces, and Serena understood their pain intimately. She helped them see that endings could be beginnings. That loss could create space for growth. The business grew faster than she'd expected. Word spread about the woman who'd survived betrayal and turned it into something beautiful. Media outlets that had once criticized her now wanted interviews. She turned most of them down, but accepted a few to share her message: your worst moments don't define you. How you respond to them does. Adrian attended her grand opening, standing in the back with a proud smile. When the speeches were over and guests mingled with champagne, he approached her. "You did it," he said. "You built something amazing." "We did it," Serena corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "I think you're stronger than you give yourself credit for," Adrian said. "But I'm glad I could be part of your journey." They stood together, watching the celebration, and Serena felt something shift in her chest. She'd been so focused on healing, on building, that she hadn't let herself think about what came next. But standing next to Adrian, feeling his quiet strength and genuine care, she realized she was ready. Ready to trust again. Ready to hope again. Ready to love again. "Adrian," she said softly. "Remember when you said you'd ask me again? When this was all over?" He turned to look at her, something hopeful flickering in his eyes. "I remember." "I think I'm ready for that dinner," Serena said. "Just two people. No agenda. No revenge. Just us." Adrian's smile was brilliant. "How about tomorrow night? There's a new French restaurant downtown. I hear they have an excellent wine list." "Perfect," Serena said, and meant it. Love rekindled. Their first official date was awkward in the best way. After months of intense planning and serious discussions, they were suddenly just two people trying to get to know each other outside of crisis. They laughed about it, stumbled through small talk, and eventually found their rhythm. They talked about their childhoods, their dreams, the books they loved. Adrian shared that he'd always wanted to learn to paint but never made time for it. Serena admitted she'd been writing a novel in secret, working on it late at night when she couldn't sleep. "What's it about?" Adrian asked. "A woman who rebuilt her life after losing everything," Serena said with a smile. "Very original, I know." "I'd read it," Adrian said seriously. "Your story deserves to be told." They dated slowly, carefully. Both of them had been hurt before and weren't interested in rushing. They took walks along the beach, visited art museums, cooked dinner together. Adrian met Serena's family, who'd stood by her through everything. Serena met Adrian's sister, who hugged her tight and whispered, "Thank you for making him smile again." 6 months into their relationship, they took their first trip together, to Paris, the city Serena had always dreamed of visiting. Adrian showed her all his favorite spots: tiny bookshops in the Latin Quarter, cafes where writers once gathered, the bridge where couples left locks as symbols of their love. On their last night, standing on a bridge overlooking the Seine with the Eiffel Tower glittering in the distance, Adrian took both her hands. "Serena," he said, his voice serious. "I need to tell you something." Her heart fluttered nervously. "Okay." "When I first approached you, I told myself it was just about Marcus. About justice and revenge. But I was lying to myself. From the moment I saw you in that coffee shop, looking so lost and so strong at the same time, I knew you were someone special. I've fallen in love with you. Not who you were before, not the person Marcus tried to break, but who you are now. The fighter. The survivor. The woman who turned pain into purpose. Tears filled Serena's eyes. "I love you too," she whispered. "You gave me back my strength when I thought I'd lost it forever. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You're the best thing that came from the worst time of my life." They kissed as Paris sparkled around them, two broken people who'd found wholeness in each other. Resolution. 1 year after Marcus's arrest, Serena sat in a courtroom for the final time. Marcus was being sentenced. The trial had been lengthy, the evidence overwhelming. His lawyers had tried every tactic, but in the end, the truth was undeniable. Marcus looked different now. Smaller somehow, diminished. The confidence that had once seemed magnetic now looked like arrogance. He wouldn't meet her eyes. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison. Claire, who'd taken a plea deal and cooperated with investigators, received 5 years. Both would have to pay massive restitution to their victims. As the bailiffs led Marcus away, he finally looked at Serena. She saw something in his expression, maybe regret, maybe just self-pity. She'd never know, and she realized she didn't care. That chapter of her life was closed. The man who'd hurt her was facing consequences. Justice had been served. And more importantly, she'd built a new life, a better life, from the ashes of the old one. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Adrian put his arm around her, sheltering her as they walked to the car. They'd talked about whether she should make a statement, but Serena had decided against it. She'd said everything she needed to say in her testimony. Now it was time to move forward. Back at her office, her team had prepared a small celebration. Not because Marcus was going to prison, but because this phase of Serena's journey was complete. New chapters had grown beyond her wildest dreams. She'd hired 10 employees, opened a second location, and had been approached about franchising the concept. More importantly, she'd helped hundreds of people navigate their own difficult transitions. She received letters and emails regularly from clients thanking her for showing them that life could be beautiful again after loss. That evening, Serena and Adrian had dinner at their favorite restaurant, the little Italian place where they'd had their first real conversation outside of planning revenge. "How do you feel?" Adrian asked, the question he'd asked a year ago taking on new meaning. "Free," Serena said. "Really, truly free. Not because Marcus is in prison, but because I'm not angry anymore. I'm not defined by what he did to me. I'm defined by what I did after." "You're extraordinary," Adrian said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "We're extraordinary," Serena corrected with a smile. "We found each other in the worst circumstances and built something beautiful." Adrian stood up suddenly, and for a moment Serena was confused. Then he knelt beside the table, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket, and her heart stopped. "Serena Matthews," he said, his voice slightly shaky. "I know marriage is complicated for you now. I know you've been hurt. But I also know that we're not them. We're honest with each other. We're partners. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you every single day that love can be true, faithful, and real. Will you marry me?" Serena looked at the ring, simple, elegant, perfect, and then at Adrian's face. She thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The pain, the betrayal, the revenge, the healing. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, broken and lost, and the woman she was now, strong and whole. She thought about fear, and she thought about courage. And she realized that saying yes to Adrian wasn't giving up her independence or risking her heart foolishly. It was choosing to believe in possibility. Choosing to trust that not all love ends in pain. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'll marry you." The restaurant erupted in applause. Other diners had noticed, and they cheered and whistled. Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, both of them laughing and crying at once. Final message. 2 years later, Serena stood in her office, looking at the wall of photographs. Pictures of clients whose lives she'd helped transform. Wedding photos, graduation photos, photos of people starting new businesses, new relationships, new chapters. In the center was a photo from her own wedding to Adrian, a small, intimate ceremony on a beach at sunset, with only family and close friends. She wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers. Adrian had cried when he saw her walking toward him. They'd written their own vows, promising honesty, partnership, and courage. Their marriage was nothing like her first one. They talked about everything. They disagreed sometimes, even argued, but they always came back to respect and love. They supported each other's dreams. They built a life based on truth rather than illusion. Serena had published her novel, a fictionalized account of her journey that became a bestseller. She used the proceeds to create a foundation that helped women leaving abusive or deceptive relationships, providing them with legal support, therapy, and job training. Marcus was still in prison, with many years left on his sentence. Serena didn't think about him often anymore. When she did, she felt only a distant sort of pity. He'd traded everything real for power and ego, and now he had nothing. Claire had been released after serving 3 years. She'd reached out once, asking to meet. Serena had declined. Some relationships, once broken, couldn't be repaired. That was okay. Forgiveness didn't require friendship. But Serena had forgiven them, not for their sake, but for her own. She'd learned that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Letting go had freed her to embrace joy again. Her phone buzzed with a text from Adrian, done with meetings early. Want to play hooky and catch the sunset? Serena smiled and texted back, always. As she locked up her office and walked out into the golden afternoon light, Serena reflected on her journey. She'd started as a woman who planned perfect moments for others while her own life crumbled. She'd been betrayed by the 2 people she trusted most. She'd lost everything she thought defined her. But from that loss, she'd discovered who she really was. Not the perfect wife, not the successful businesswoman, not the woman who made everyone else's dreams come true while ignoring her own. She was Serena. Flawed, strong, capable of great love and great courage. Capable of falling and getting back up. Capable of being hurt and choosing to heal. Her story wasn't about revenge, though that had been part of it. It wasn't about finding new love, though that had been a beautiful gift. It was about transformation. About refusing to let betrayal define her. About choosing, every single day, to build something better from the ruins of what was broken. As she drove toward the beach where Adrian waited, Serena thought about all the people who were going through their own dark chapters right now. People who felt lost, betrayed, broken beyond repair. She thought about what she'd want to tell them. Your pain is real. Your anger is valid. Your grief deserves to be felt. But you are not what was done to you. You are what you choose to do next. Some days, that choice is just getting out of bed. Some days, it's asking for help. Some days, it's taking one small step toward healing. And some days, it's believing that you deserve love, joy, and peace, even after someone tried to take those things away. The road to healing isn't straight. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes you take 2 steps back for every 1 step forward. But every step, forward or back, is part of the journey. And you're stronger than you know. Serena pulled into the beach parking lot and saw Adrian waiting, leaning against his car with that smile that still made her heart flutter. He held up a picnic basket and she laughed, remembering their first real date. She walked toward him, toward the sunset, toward the life they were building together. A life based not on perfection or illusion, but on truth, growth, and genuine love. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that this was her happy ending. Not because everything was perfect, it wasn't, but because she'd fought for it, earned it, built it with her own scarred but capable hands. Some stories end with revenge. Some end with romance. But the best stories, the truest ones, end with transformation. With a person who was broken becoming whole again. With pain becoming purpose. With endings becoming new beginnings. This was Serena's story. And she was just getting started. The end. Welcome to Heart's Reckoning. If this story touched your heart, reminded you of your own strength, or gave you hope that healing is possible, please like and subscribe to our channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that they can survive betrayal, rebuild after loss, and find love again. Your support helps us create more stories that inspire, heal, and remind us all that we're stronger than we know. Thank you for being part of this journey.